Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I have a very special guest today, Jacki Foote, right? I'm still used to calling you by your last name from high school. So
I know. I'm also used to that, and it's a better last name.
yeah, it's a better last name. So as you can tell, Jacki and I have known of each other since high school, I think.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily friends in high school, but then she became really good friends with my middle sister, and so we kind of know each other that way. But she's going to share a pretty crazy story with us. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of let you start wherever you feel like starting, Jacki, and then we'll go from there.
So I guess the story we're talking about today is my breakup story from 12 years ago, I want to say 12-ish,
Okay.
somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
I was 24. So I had been with this guy since I was like, I don't know, 16, I think is when we started kind of seeing each other.
So that was, you guys were together that long?
Yeah, I started dating him when I was a junior in high school.
I don't think I knew that part of the story. Obviously, I know some bits and pieces of the story, but I don't know the full story. So some of this is new for me also.
Yeah, I actually, I've known him since middle school. Like, we were friends for a long time. And then we had a bunch of mutual friends, and then we just somehow ended up, I guess, kind of seeing each other junior year of high school. We started ending up like at a lot of parties together, and then we'd hang out, and it just somehow fell into that. So yeah, we started dating when I was 16-ish, dated the rest of high school. And then after high school, him and I moved in together. We actually moved in together when I was still technically in high school. I did this thing in high school where I graduated a semester early, and then they paid for me to go to college at a community college. So during that period of time, what would have been my last semester of high school, him and I actually moved in together.
Oh, wow.
And then, let's see, we were together for several years after that. We had a couple breakups in between. We were young, so.
It happened.
And yeah. So then after we broke up the last time, that was due to a cheating situation. So that was, and in reality, I say due to a cheating situation, he cheated on me like all the time. And by all the time, I mean all the time. So, and I always knew about it, but I just it's easier to deny that it's happening rather than kind of face it and deal with it, especially when you're that young. So
Did you like have very obvious, like, this is for sure happening, or were you just suspecting?
people would like tell me things were going on. So like people would tell me like, my friend hooked up with him or whatever the case is. Probably TMI, but I would also like get an STD, and I was not cheating. So things like that would happen. But I always somehow was able to convince myself that it wasn't like reality of what was happening. And I mean, even to the day that we broke up, he denied ever cheating on me except the one time, which is BS. But I just kind of put that to the side. And so, but he was always kind of elusive, and there was always a part of him I felt like that didn't want to be tied down in a relationship. But I wanted to be. And there was always this constant pull of like, I don't think he wanted to hurt me, but also wanted to do his own thing. And so he would just cheat. And then finally, the last hurrah, we had gotten engaged. We actually got engaged that April.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. We got engaged on April 1st. And then on April 5th, his mom passed away.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he came from a family that was like very, very, they were all very heavy addicts. So his mom had been an alcoholic like his whole life, like a really, really intense alcoholic. His dad was in and out and was also addicted. And when his mom passed away, she had been sober, I think, for a couple of weeks. She had been trying to like regain sobriety. We actually, a couple days after she passed away, went to one of her AA meetings and collected her 30-day chip. So she had been sober for, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks at that time. I think, if I remember correctly, she died of like pneumonia or something similar, pneumonia or bronchitis or something of that nature. If you ask my non-doctor opinion, her body was just worn down after the amount of alcohol use that she had endured.
And so she just, like, her body couldn't fight it anymore, and
yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. But her official cause of death was not like alcohol related. So anyway, that happened. And then we were still living together. We were still planning our wedding. And then one day I got a call from a close friend, actually of me and Tegan's. She told me that she had heard through the grapevine that my ex had been sleeping with another close friend of ours. And so this girl was like she wasn't my best friend by any means, but she was somebody who I considered a close friend. And she had also, she had been in a relationship prior with another guy for a really long time who cheated on her all of the time. So I never really suspected that was going on. But come to find out that my ex and her had been hooking up for 3 or 4 months at that point in time, and had this whole long-term situation while we were, engaged to be married. So
not only was it them having sex, obviously, that was like a relationship.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like, there would be times at this point in time. So I had graduated college and I went and got a real job, right? So he was still working at a restaurant, actually the same restaurant that, I had worked at previously, Tegan worked at previously, and then the girl he was cheating on me with also was still working there. So there would be times I would have to go to bed earlier than them, obviously, because I had to work at like 7 a.m. Whereas he would go to work and then they would finish their shift and then everybody would go out and party. So it wasn't like abnormal for him to come home late. But there were times that I would wake up for work and he like wasn't home at all. And so, if you look back, I guess hindsight's 2020 is what they say.
Always.
Yeah, there's a million signs that probably that
Mm.
was going on. There, like I would notice also that he was like all of a sudden dressing way nicer than he had been dressing before previously. Like he like really cared about how he looked in a different way than he had previously,
That's
which was
weird.
unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he would say weird things and he would tell me weird stories. Like he told me a story about going out to a nightclub once with another set of friends and how a girl had asked for his number and how he gave her the wrong number and he wonders if she ever called that number. And I remember my instinct to him was like, why did the girl feel comfortable giving you her number? Like girls don't do that. In my experience, a girl doesn't go up to a guy and is like interested in him and gives her number unless she feels comfortable in some capacity, right? So like
Yeah.
that stuck out to me. There was just a lot of stuff that stuck out to me as like weird, but I could never pinpoint why. And then when all the cheating stuff came out, when I found out that him and my friend had been having a long-term affair, then it kind of all started to make sense. But when that happened, I actually still tried to work on it, sadly enough. That was, and the thing about being cheated on, at least in my experience, is that it's a very painful experience. So you do everything, like I said, you do everything possible to like pretend it didn't happen and kind of avoid dealing with it. And so I was still wanting to work this out. And he actually is the one who made the decision and left me. And then they had a relationship for like another year or two after that. So it was wild. Yeah. But again, hindsight's 2020. That was the worst relationship I could have ever ended up in. I'm glad that he made the decision to be with her for a while. I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's married with a kid or two, which good for him. But that's absolutely not the direction that would have worked out well for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's devastating. And I mean, I feel like you're a really smart girl. So, when you would find out that he was cheating on you with other people too, did you confront him and did you just like compartmentalize it, put it away?
No, I always confronted him and he always denied it.
Yeah. And I guess that's hard because like prior to that, if he'd never given you a reason not to trust him, then you're just like, okay, sure, I trust you.
Right. Well, and I would hear about these things all the time, but I could never like for sure catch him. There would always be something like, again, I got an STD and like that was an obvious one, but he like made something up even for that. And so I was able to like kind of figure out how that could be not realistic. And I would find stuff like I would go through his phone, for example, and I would find that he had been talking to somebody and he worked at a restaurant that wasn't like a different restaurant previously, and he had been talking to some girl and the girl like responded to him and was like I don't remember what they were talking about. Then she responded to him a couple days later and was like, I can't believe you, like XYZ, and then I find out that you're engaged to somebody. Like they had been clearly talking and then she found out he was engaged and it flipped her out, obviously, because they had been having something.
So he was lying to everyone involved.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
He just wanted the attention.
Wow.
He had moved temporarily. So he has an older brother and he moved with his older brother. Well, his older brother moved to Portland. And in one of like my ex's spiral, I can't do life kind of moments, he moved to Portland and spent like 6 to 8 months, I think, living with his brother. And so we did long distance during that time. Then he came back and I found some text messages between him and his brother. And his brother was asking him, like, how are you and Jacki? And his response was, we're good. We're always good. But if I saw, I don't remember their names, Hillary and Alicia, maybe, I don't think I'd be able to help myself. He said something along those lines.
Oh my God.
And I remember being like, but again, there was always like some sort of excuse of like, well, that was when we were on a break and we didn't actually do anything or things like that. So yeah, like I consider myself intelligent and I consider myself not intuitive, but like I can sense when something's wrong.
I mean, yeah.
It's just so much easier to shut it off than deal with it. So that's what
because the consequences of that and the way that then plays out is like blowing up your whole world at that time. And
Yeah, exactly. And that's what ultimately ended up happening anyway, right? So when we did finally split, the breakup was really horrific because he wanted to be with this other girl who I had been friends with, and a lot of my friends were friends with still. And so there was just a lot of, you know, I couldn't get rid of them in my life. And like, for example, even Tegan, when she got married, they were both in her wedding.
yeah.
And so there was just a lot of, it was extremely excruciating when it was happening, right? It was probably a really excruciating full year. And that's what I knew would happen if I dealt with it. If I admitted that he was cheating on me and made the decision to leave, I knew that excruciating set of circumstances was facing me. And so I kept not making the decision to leave or like face the fact that he was cheating.
So it was more of like, you think like an avoidance slash survival type
Yeah.
tactic?
Yeah. You're just trying not to feel how horrible it is. That's the
Yeah.
only thing you can do.
I know, but I mean, I think that's so interesting that I mean, like now, obviously, like you said, looking back, why do you think it was the reason you stayed as long as you did and kept wanting to like work it out with him was simply just that you didn't want your world to implode and have to do all that?
Yeah. And I loved him. Like I wanted to be with him,
Yeah.
and the pain of like the fact that he was doing these things to me was really horrific to bear, not just in the sense that my world was going to change, but also in the sense that I would have to deal with somebody that I really loved and who I really wanted to be with did not feel the same, that he really, like, that he could not stop cheating on me. And so that was another realization that I had to make. And at one point I was forced to make it, right?
Yeah.
But I worked really hard to avoid having to make that realization.
Did you ever talk to him about like, did it ever come out like what his problem was?
You know, I've talked to him since, not in depth. We had actually she had a graduation party for when she finished her master's degree, and I saw him there. That was in like 2016, so 10 years ago. And we talked a little bit, but we didn't really talk about that. There were like several conversations kind of in the year after we split where he would say things like, I'm really sorry, I just couldn't face reality, like things like that. But we never had like more of a conversation than that. And I really haven't seen or interacted with him since. Like he's got his own life. I think he lives pretty far now. I think like several hours away from here. I've got another close friend who's married to his brother. And so, yeah, I'll see his brother pretty often, his younger brother. And like they see him from time to time and will like, tell me that he's got another kid or whatever the case is. But I have not spoken to him or heard from him. And yeah, well, that's not my friend who is married to his brother. They actually recently had a baby, and so I put the baby shower together. And so I saw him there, but it was like I gave him a hug, said hi. That was the first time I've seen him in probably 10 years.
I mean, I just wonder, like, he was obviously like doing this so often to you, but like, why? Like, what? But I think people are fascinating, so I always like to like psychoanalyze all the things and like,
Yeah.
like what the fuck? What's the rationalization there?
I think there's a couple layers to it just in knowing him for as long as I did, which I think that he was in like himself in a lot of pain. I think that he had a lot of self-esteem issues, and getting attention from girls was something that he was able to validate himself with. I think the other thing, and I know for sure he was at one point in time, and I don't know what his deal is now, but for a long time he really struggled with mental health. And I think that in those struggles, I think he very much loved me, and I think that he really cared about me and in some capacity wanted me in his life. But I think that he, in his mental health struggles, really struggled with feeling tied down, and that's what we were doing. And so I think also the cheating was kind of an escape for him to like feel freedom that he was looking for and wasn't getting in our relationship. I came out of that with a lot of learning too, because the more he would do things, the tighter my grasp would get, right? I would constantly be looking at his phone. I would constantly be asking him where he was, or, saying that he couldn't do XYZ. And it was a lot of trust issues, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to build that trust back up once it's broken.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, and now I'm married. I've been with my current husband for 11 and a half years. I shouldn't say the only husband I've ever had. I keep telling him I'm going to call him my first husband, but I've been with him for 11 and a half years, and that's not the relationship I have with him. Like, I don't check his phone. I don't ask him where he's going. He doesn't. I don't feel the need to have that tight grip. And the funny thing about it is I think the tight grip just made things it was worse, right? Like he would do horrible things, my ex, my grip would get tighter, and then that would freak him out more, and he'd do worse things, and it just like couldn't. It was this cycle that couldn't end.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of, to kind of go back to the original thought of like why, I think a lot of it was just a mix of self-esteem issues and some mental health stuff of really trying to figure out, how he could have this freedom that he was desperately craving and didn't know what to do about.
Which is then interesting that he then ends up having a relationship immediately following.
Yeah, I think that he's had a couple serious relationships since then because him and I split, and he was with her for at least a year, if not two. So that was like you went from one serious relationship to the next.
That's what I'm saying. Like if that was part of the psychology behind it, then you just like tied yourself down again. Like here's your opportunity.
Right. I know.
To
he always talked about like, yeah, I know. But he always talked about like needing to, be on his own, and like, and that's what that's part of why I think he moved to Portland. He just wanted to like do his own thing. And then when him and that girl split, I think my understanding was he ended up in another like 4-year, 5-year relationship. Actually, the last time I had really talked to him in 2016, he was with that girl. And then and now he's married, I think, to somebody else after the other girl. So like he's been in several serious relationships since then. So I don't know what he wants. I don't think he knows what he wants. Maybe he does now. I haven't talked to him forever, but
yeah. Well, and here we're just psychoanalyzing him behind his backs.
Right. Well, and the only thing I can do is psychoanalyze him from 12 years ago. Like I haven't spoken to him in depth for that long. So
yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the spiral that you had after the breakup.
Yeah. So I want to disclaim this by saying I was 24, 25 years old. Sure. So I had zero responsibilities and kind of had the.
And you'd been with him since you were 16, you said, right? So
yeah. So we were together from 16 to 24. So, but we had broken up. That's the other thing to consider. He dropped out of high school and I went to college, and I had gotten accepted into every college in Colorado. Like I had all these dreams when I was graduating high school of like going and living in a dorm room and going to a college and living that college life. But I instead decided to get an apartment with him, and I went to a commuter college. So I didn't have like a typical college experience either. So which isn't like a bad thing. I made that decision. I'm glad I did. I met some really good friends in the way that I chose to do things. But when him and I split, I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have kids. I wasn't tied down to anybody. I had a new job that was relatively like fresh. And so there wasn't anything that I needed to take a lot of consideration for. But I had another really close friend. We're not close or we're actually not friends at all anymore. But she was really impactful in the fact that I was able to kind of spiral, but like survive all of that because her and I would go out all the time and we would party really, really hard all the time. And so I kind of sunk into this party atmosphere where I was constantly drinking. I was constantly doing drugs. I did a ton of cocaine for, I don't know, a year or two, just as we would go out all the time. And then, but I also want to say I had a ton of fun. Like I don't look back on this and think like I shouldn't have done any of those things or I got too chaotic. I had a lot of fun doing it. And I also, I lost 25 pounds, which I never gained back until I got pregnant. So I just felt like hot for the first time in a long time. I felt like, we'd go out and it was a distraction from like what I was feeling. And so that's what I did. I went out and I would stay out till 4 a.m. and then I'd go home and take a shower and put eyeliner on and crawl to work in the morning. And I did this for a year or two.
The beauty of being 24 and being able to bounce back from that shit.
Right. I could never do it now.
No.
I actually, probably about a year ago, was talking to a girlfriend. I was like, we should go out. Like, I haven't gone out in a long time, and I missed it. We had so much fun. And me and my girlfriend went out. By like 11, I was like, I can't be out here anymore. I need to go home and take a shower and go to bed.
Yep. Well, and then
now.
Anytime I have done that, like where I've gone out and gone more wild, like more than like 2 drinks.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, why did I do this?
I hate my life. Yeah. So that's not anything I could do now. But I had a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, I met my husband at a party. He approached me at some party that we were at that I wasn't originally going to go to. I actually had, and that's, I guess, another part of the story. During the spiral, was still so sad over my ex, right? And so like we would go out drinking, I'd be having a ton of fun, and then like something would hit me and I would be really drunk, and so then I'd like be in the bathroom crying at whatever bar we were at. And so the night that I met my husband, my friend invited me to this party, and I had said no because I was already at home crying, like upset about, you know, all the breakup stuff. And she had convinced me to go out, so I did. And I met my husband, and that's part of why my husband, I think, is so part of why I love him so much and was able to fall in love with him so quickly. I don't know if what that's actually, I didn't fall in love with him quickly, but the reason I was able to fall in love with him deeply, I guess, at one point in time was because for the first like full year of my relationship with him, I was still recovering from my first relationship. And he knew that. And so he would watch me kind of spiral and would also like kind of clue into the fact that I was still reeling with some emotions of, you know, feelings with my ex. And he kind of sat through that a little bit with me until I got to the other side of it. So, but with that being said, during that spiral, while I was kind of struggling to get through the breakup, I was drinking heavily, doing a lot of drugs, and then would end up crying. And it was just a very, very messy year or two of my life.
Yeah.
So I try to give grace to people as they do the same thing. The difference is, again, now I'm 36. I don't have that luxury, as a lot of people don't. So, yeah.
So you said you and your husband were together for that. You said that first year you were still sort of grieving the past relationship.
Yeah, and I met my husband. So like my ex and I split, I want to say September of 2014. But we were still kind of talking a little bit until December of 2014. And that December is when we finally like completely cut it off. And I met my ex I met my current husband on February 1st. So
Okay.
I really had only been free of like talking to my ex for maybe like a month and a half at that point in time. But yeah, it took me, I mean, it was like a full year that I was still like reeling from the previous
Did he know that at the time?
Yeah.
I know you said you guys have talked about that since, but yeah, and he just hung in there, huh?
Yeah. I remember telling him once, like proudly, that I had blocked my ex's phone number.
Okay.
And I was like proud of that and was thinking like, you know, that's something I could share with now my new boyfriend. Like, oh yeah, I have my ex's number blocked. Like, fuck that guy. And he was like, well, then you're not over him. Like, if you feel the need to block his number, it's triggering something in you. And I was like, no, I just don't want to deal with him. And he was like, one day you won't care. And I remember the day that I stopped caring.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So I had gone to a wedding, actually his brother's wedding, and I had left the wedding really upset. Like I had gone there, and I was fine seeing my ex there, but I had seen his grandparents there, and I was really drunk, and his grandpa gave me a hug, and I just started sobbing. So I left the wedding. And then the next morning, like for whatever reason, I just didn't care. Like I just felt like I didn't miss him. I was pissed that I had gotten upset about seeing his grandfather. I realized like that his grandfather was the reason I was crying, like that it was like I had known his grandfather for so long.
Yeah.
And like that, you know, that triggered that in me. But I realized I didn't care about my ex in that moment. And I unblocked his number and I just didn't care. And the funny thing is, then he started texting me like the next morning.
Weird how the universe works like that sometimes.
Yeah. And like, this is why your number was blocked.
Oh,
That's
man.
how it goes.
I mean, I guess, yeah, that was really like intuitive of your husband to say like, well, if you've blocked it, like then, because it sort of implies that you don't have the control, so you need that wall in place.
Yeah.
To make sure that you don't text him, call him, or get any of his calls or texts or whatever, versus just like not giving a fuck.
Right. Yeah. And so he said that, and I remember thinking, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I just don't want to deal with my ex, so that's why I haven't blocked. And then one day I was like, I don't really give a shit if you call me or text me. I have no interest in responding or any of that. So
was that like an announcement to your husband? Like,
no,
I don't give a fuck anymore.
I mean, we've talked about it since. That was 10, 11 years ago. We've talked about it since, but I didn't announce that the same way, no.
Yeah.
And the reason I had blocked my ex in the first place was honestly because he wasn't really texting and calling me. Like he would sometimes out of the blue, but I didn't want to know if he was texting or calling me, because when he would not, that would almost hurt worse. And so, and then randomly he would, right? Like I unblocked him the morning after the wedding and immediately started texting me. So like those things would happen. But I mean, that part I hadn't told my husband, right? Like I haven't blocked really because I don't want to see that he's not texting me.
Right. Well, at the time you probably didn't even want to admit that to yourself.
Correct. Right. So yeah, super intuitive on my husband's end. He was dead on.
Yeah.
But
Again,
yeah,
hindsight's 2020. I absolutely hate that it's
yeah,
2020. I'm like, where's my
right.
crystal ball? I'm ready for a crystal ball to tell me what the future is instead of me being able to like look back on things and be like, oh, okay.
That makes more sense. Yeah, exactly.
Man, what about the girl and your friendship?
That never recovered in any capacity.
I mean, I can't imagine it would. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a horrible person, I think. And I don't mean that like I don't care anything about her today. I don't hate her. I don't wish her ill will. Like I hope that she figures out what's going on. I heard through the grapevine, which I don't know how accurate it is. It's just rumor mill, but she is part of this other group of girlfriends that they've been friends for like I don't know, 20 years. And one of those girls who she's friends with was married with 3 kids. And it sounds like a year or two ish ago that that friend of hers found out that the other girl was sleeping with her husband. And they've been friends for like 20 years. Right. So like again, I don't know how accurate that is. I just have heard that.
Hmm.
But I know that the other girl did get a divorce. So everybody's been saying it's because she was sleeping with the other. That's wild. And if that's true, which I think it is, but again, whatever. If that's true, that's sad. Like, it's sad because it means that it wasn't like a drunk, I'm in my early
Hmm.
20s and trying to figure life out and doing some shitty things, and then I figure life out kind of thing.
Right.
If that's true, then that means she's still really battling some demons
Hmm.
because not only did she do it to me, but she has done it to somebody in a much more serious situation who she's been like best friends with for 20 years.
But also another friend. Like,
Yeah, a one who's better of a friend by a long shot than her and I were.
ugh. I mean, when my dad had his affair, I had said that I never met her. I never once met her. So Tegan and Tara both did, but I never did. And because I was like, I don't know. I was just like, I don't have to forgive that bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, right.
at least, I mean, you got to eventually move on from him. But like, with my dad, I was like, well, I was like, I love you and I can forgive you eventually. But like, I don't have to forgive this bitch because she knew full well what she was doing the entire
Yeah,
time. Like,
right.
and to like, I don't know. I mean, I'm very much in this chapter of life right now of like women supporting women, which
Yeah,
I know is very trendy right now, but also like for real, like we are so good at tearing each other down a lot of the times. And I just like knowingly doing that to someone that just breaks my heart that you would do that. And then to a friend on top.
well, and that was the weird, right? That's the hard part is, you know, in another situation within I think about the girl who texted him and was like, blah, blah, blah. And then I find out that you're engaged, right? She
Hmm.
had no idea. And even if she did, she doesn't owe me anything. Now,
Right.
I'm with you, the women supporting women thing. I would never do that even to a stranger. But at the same point, you look at these situations and a lot of times it like you have to look at it as the woman didn't owe anybody anything and it's always on the person who's doing the cheating, right? But
Hmm.
in this situation she did owe me, she was a friend, so I kind of
And she
got double
knew you were
screwed.
engaged and she knew
Yeah.
we were together. And yeah.
Yep. The other, so we had another girlfriend who was dating this other guy at the time. And we all found out, this is before I found out that, my ex had been cheating on me. But we found out that the girl my ex cheated on me with had like done something with the other girl's boyfriend.
Mm.
And this was probably like 6 months before I found out about things going on with my ex. And I remember we went, so we all worked at that restaurant together, right? And so we had gone outside to smoke a cigarette. And I was telling the girl I was friends with, like, I don't know if I can trust you around my fiance. Like, that just feels
Oh, you
off that you
said
would
that.
do. Yeah. And I was like, that just feels off that you would do something like that. And we had another friend standing there and she was like, I can't believe you would say that. Like, that was really direct. And I feel like that was just like a mistake that she made. And I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And so then like a month went by and we were driving somewhere and I was with the girl and I was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that to you. What you did wasn't right, but like it had nothing to do with me. And I know you wouldn't do that to me. I shouldn't have said that. And she like went on this whole thing about like, you're right. I would never do that to you. I forgive you for saying it, like for giving me forget. And in the meantime, during this time, she was already sleeping with my ex. And so,
Oh my God.
yeah, it's just twisty on all ends. They all owed me something.
Yeah.
And there's also a ton of people who knew about it and didn't say anything to me about it that
That's
I was
gotta
friends with.
be heartbreaking too.
Yeah, it was like this major secret that everybody was keeping. I
But
think a few people heard about it and didn't know if they believed it. It was just like really chaotic when it was
to be
happening.
fair, that's a really tough position to be in too.
100%. Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, I'm sure that made things worse for you for sure.
Yeah.
But I can also like have a little bit of sympathy for the people who did know and didn't know what the
Yeah.
fuck to do about it.
It's not, they didn't put themselves in that position, right? Somebody else put them in that position.
Yeah.
It was just hard for me because it felt like a betrayal from everybody. Like it
Yeah.
felt like every single person around me had been involved in this and I didn't know about it. And
Well, and that probably made you feel even more stupid. You're like, everybody
yeah,
fucking knew about this but me?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
again, I
know.
think a lot of people heard about it and didn't know for sure if
They
it was
just
happening.
heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people didn't want to, like, be the person who said it was happening and then it turns out it's not true or anything like that.
How
So
did you finally find out that it was happening then?
one of my friends called me one night and was like, hey, I want to let you know that this is what I heard. And again, normally I was able to convince myself it wasn't true, right? In this case, for some reason, I just had a feeling that it was. So I went back. I had been in my bedroom at the time, and had been laying in bed with my ex when I got this call. So I had stepped out of the bedroom to take the call when my friend called me.
Did she give
And
you a heads up like, hey, we gotta
she was
talk
like, are you by
alone?
yourself and
Okay.
like not around your fiance? And I was like, I can be by myself. So I stepped out of the room. And then she told me. And so then I went back in the room and I was like, hey, this is the phone call I just got. And he was like, no, that's completely not true. Absolutely not. Right. And all the things that I was saying before that just like started to kind of click about these little tiny hints that things were going on all started to kind of make sense. Like even earlier that day, we were sitting, I had been sick. So that's why we were home. I was sick. And so we'd been laying in bed watching movies and he said something to me like, let's play that game, Marry, Fuck, Kill. And I was like, okay. And so he like gave me 3 guys and I like said, I don't even remember, whatever. And then
Was
he
it
was
like
like,
people
okay.
you knew or was it like
Yeah.
celebrities?
Yeah. It was people I knew. And then
Okay,
he was
that's
like,
weird.
okay. So then he's like, I'll give you the 3 girls and I'll tell you Marry, fuck. And she was in that list and he said he would fuck her. Like, it was just like this weird twisty shit
Was
like
he
that. That was like,
trying to get caught?
that's what I'm saying. It was like always weird shit. Or like I had been going through his phone like 2 weeks prior and there was a picture in his phone of one of her friends in her bra. But it wasn't like a sexual picture. It was like she was in bed and she had just woken up and she was like sitting up and she had her head in her hands like this and she was in her bra and her hair was super messy. And I don't remember what the context was. But like I was like, this is a weird picture for you to have. And so anyway, when I like got this call, it's just like all of these things started to be like click, 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 click. That just these small things that I had picked up on over the last several months, right? You're dressing really well. This Marry, Fuck, Kill weird thing that you brought up earlier today. This weird picture I found. They had a dance that they would do, like some stupid dance that they would do when we were at work. That was like a funny day. Like that, it just like all these things started to click. And so he said no, and I just didn't believe it. So anyway, I called Tegan actually. She didn't answer. Her phone kept going straight to voicemail. So I called her several times, couldn't get a hold of her throughout the night. So then we went to bed and I kind of just let it be. Then I woke up in the morning, I couldn't shake the feeling. So I was like, can I see your phone? So I went through his phone and there were no text messages from her or like
Yeah.
any conversation. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like they work together. I know that they've like had a text messaging conversation from here and there.
And this was before like Slack.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so if you needed to trade shifts or something happened at work or
Yeah,
something
you text-
missing, there was
yeah.
probably a text thread.
Right. So that was weird. And then Tegan called me back because I had texted it when she wasn't answering her phone. I was texting her and I was like, hey, this is what I just heard. Do you know anything about it? And so then she called me back and she was like, hey, sorry, my phone died last night. And she's like, I got it turned on at the end of the night and I saw your text. So I looked and she's like, I was with that girl last night. And she was like, I looked at her and I was like, hey, Jacki's asking me XYZ. Do you know anything about that? And she was like, and the girl like ran to her car sobbing and wouldn't talk to anybody for the rest of the night. And I was like, okay, something's weird, right? So
She wasn't like, no, that's not true. I don't know where she got that from.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
Or like, and then acting normal, right? She like completely avoided the question, ran to her car, was crying, locked herself in her car, wouldn't talk to anybody. So then I was like, okay, this is super weird. So then at that point, I went onto my AT&T phone bill because my ex and I were on the same phone plan. And I went through all of the text messaging history because you can see like the numbers that people are texting, right? And it was all her phone number from on his.
but
And
was he
but
just deleting them then?
yeah, he was deleting all the texts. But I mean, the phone bill shows her phone number, just like like multiple pages of her phone number. And so I looked at him and I was like, "You're deleting your text messages with her. Like this whole AT&T bill is you texting with her, and you have no text in your phone." And he just got up and left the house.
Man.
And then I was like, "Yeah, I know what's going on." And then she finally, one of her friends came clean about it.
So now you've heard it from multiple people.
Yeah.
Plus
Yeah.
her reaction, plus the text messages. Like, it's getting to a point where you can't deny it.
Correct. And then finally he admitted to it after just like one thing after another.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a
So that's how it
mess.
played out.
So, I mean, you said you've been with your husband now for, you said 11 years or whatever. I mean, obviously the two relationships are vastly different, but
Yeah.
I mean, what type of things do you feel like you learned from that you brought into your like marriage now that makes it so much better? Or did you do therapy or anything like that through it to get through it?
A little bit. Therapy's hard. It's a good thing to do. It's a lot of hard work, and I wasn't in a good headspace to do the work at the time.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of therapy though. My husband is, first of all, so when I became kind of open to talking to people or dating or whatnot, I just like every time I would talk to somebody, it was like it just felt so not right. Like I would meet somebody and we'd talk and I would just immediately get the ick or like feel like I didn't want to see them again or anything like that. And then when I met my husband, I don't know how else to describe, like there was such instant chemistry there. And I don't know, like the chemistry is more than attraction because, and I'll tell you, like, I'm clearly attracted to my husband, right? I love him. He's an attractive man, but that's not it. There was just this immediate chemistry. And when I met him at a time that most people would probably tell you is really unhealthy to start seeing somebody, right? Like I had just split with my ex. We'd been together for 8 years.
Not over him yet.
Not over him yet. Split a month and a half ago. Still going out to the bars and crying over him. But every time I would talk to my husband, my current husband, I was immediately like not thinking about my ex for like the time that I was talking to my husband. And I wanted to be around him and I wanted to like be in his presence and like I don't know, I just like there was this immediate chemistry of the fact that I wanted him in my space, right? So then as like our relationship grew, I mean it took us 2.5 years to even say I love you. So like we moved very slowly. It's very healthy in the fact that he is a very committed man. And so what I learned, I think more than anything else, is that like you cannot waste your time with somebody who's not committed to who he is, what he does, what he wants to do in life, like all of those things, right? And so he is like when I first met him, he was working on his career and he has since done a ton to build himself in the way that he, is doing his career to this day. And that was something like I could see that with him, right? He was very committed to that and he was very like passionate about that. And, he's not one thing that I struggled with my husband at first is he is not overly like romantic or passionate or like he's not the guy who's going to be like, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in the world, and I don't know what I would do without you. That's not who he is. We don't hold hands, for example. That's not a thing. But he's very committed to me. And so the most beautiful girl could walk by him at the bar and his eyes won't leave my eyes because we're having a conversation. We have definitely been through our fair share of fighting and all of that.
No relationship is perfect.
Correct, right. But he's always committed to making it right. He has like every single thing I told him I've wanted in a relationship, even if it's something that he's like not for example, we are about to have a baby, right? I'm due with our first kid in 2 weeks. He has a daughter from a previous marriage. And he's always told me, like, to be honest with you, I don't want any more kids. And I've been upfront, like, I think I want to have a family. And so he's told me, I will have one kid with you, right? And he kept that promise. I wanted a house. He said eventually we'll get a house. He kept that promise. Everything that he's told me he's going to do, whether or not he was ready to do it, whether or not he wanted, he promised me he would do it, and he kept the promise. He's never broken a promise to me. He's just the best word I can use to describe him is committed. He's committed to everything he does, and he's really committed to me. And so I try to bring that on my end also into our marriage, right? And it's something that was very severely lacking in that relationship from prior. So I'm very aware of what I have in my marriage now with that piece of commitment, right?
Yeah.
And that part I try to make sure that I really hone in on with him, of like that I appreciate that about him, and that
Yeah. Well, and
that I wish.
especially after everything you've been through
Yeah,
too, that's even more important for you
right.
to feel that way
Yeah.
from him. So,
But yeah, so that's a lot of
well,
what I've learned.
I mean, that's great. I'm glad you were able to find somebody. I mean, I think a lot of people after, especially after tumultuous breakups like that, I think a lot of people end up going for similar people. Or at least that's what
Yeah,
I've seen.
right.
And so the fact that you obviously got somebody that was totally quite different, it sounds
Right.
like. And, not everybody learns from that.
Well,
So,
that was the thing, right? Is that honestly, I didn't search for my husband. I met him sporadically at a party. He just happened to be somebody who was that. I would love to tell you, like, I changed. I made all these healthy choices and like changed my taste in men and all these things. But at the end of the day, I met him at a party a month and a half after my ex and I stopped talking. And it just so happens that the person that I met and had this intense chemistry with is also just a committed guy. So
some of
there's a
it
lot
was
of
right
luck.
timing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just luck, right? So that's what I can say about that. Again, I would tell you that, and most other people would probably tell you that that was definitely not the healthiest time to meet somebody, but it is, in my life, it was the right time. I'll be the first one to cheer on rebound relationships because at best, or I should say at worst for somebody, they're a distraction from the pain, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I needed at that time, was a distraction from the pain. It was so overwhelming and so excruciating that I needed to not feel it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was with my husband, I didn't feel in pain. I felt like excited. I was giddy. I was nervous around it, like all the fun things. And that was a distraction. And it just so happened to be that he's a really good man. And so I was able to eventually fall in love with him and, marry him and start a family with him. And I'm very lucky that that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously eventually healed from all of it. So you had to have, I mean, you said you remembered the day when you just didn't give a fuck about him anymore, the ex. So, I mean, I don't know, because I could see too, like you're saying distraction, like, were you still processing in the time, like trying to heal from all of that or like subconsciously even maybe?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of healing that goes on in that, even if you don't feelings for the person anymore, right? Of
Yeah.
just like, why do you let yourself end up in a situation like that? Or
Sure.
all of that. And I'm sure there was a lot of processing in that capacity. I couldn't tell you like a lot of the conscious piece of that.
Yeah.
I can just tell you that, one of the things I remember in therapy was the therapist asking me, like, what do you want to feel? Like, what do you want the end game? How do you want to feel? And I said, I want to feel like I can look back at my relationship with my ex and know it happened and remember how it felt, but that I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, well, just like concentrate on feeling that way, right? Like concentrate on that. That's how you want to feel, is that you want to feel that you can look at it, you can remember it happened, and you don't have feelings about it anymore. And then one day that's what happened. And so I think,
Do you think you found forgiveness?
oh yeah, yeah, I don't have
Okay.
any animosity to him or the other girl.
Yeah.
There's not, and if for both people to have done what they've done, you have to be in a lot of pain in your own end, right? Because
Yeah.
like nobody, I would never do that to somebody,
Yeah.
ever. No matter who they were, or if I didn't know them. Like if I knew that somebody, first of all, I would never do that to my partner, even if I didn't love them anymore. Like I can't imagine putting somebody who I had shared that like intimate type of relationship with through that type of pain, right? And then for the female side of it, like I can't imagine, to your point, like I care that other women don't feel shitty as a result of something I've done. So for both of them to have done what they did, there had to be something else that I can't relate to.
Yeah.
And that means that the only way I have to forgive them. First of all, I don't have any. I ended up in a better spot as a result, right? Because if she had not done what she did, and if he had not done what he did, I would have married him. And that would have been, he probably would have found a way to, dissolve that prior to marriage, who knows? But if I would have married him, that would have been catastrophic for my life. I ended up in a much better situation as a result of what happened. And so in some capacity, I owe them a thank you, right?
Not actually, but
Yeah, right. But in the reality of it, there's nothing, it's what I told the therapist I was looking for, right? I can look back on it, I can acknowledge that it happened, and I feel absolutely nothing for it. And so to hold on to anger about that or to not feel any sense of forgiveness would be, I heard a quote about something like swallowing poison and expecting somebody else to feel pain. There's nothing about that I can hold against them. Again, for them to have done what they did, they have to have already been in a bad spot. So I absolutely forgive them. I hope both of them are well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I can do.
hopefully they figured their shit out, you know, and
Yeah.
are living a better life
Yep.
than back then.
He's married. I know he's one. I think he has 2 kids now. So I hope that he does the right thing. I think his first kid is a daughter. In fact, I know his first kid is a daughter. So I hope that he thinks about that kind of stuff as he raises his daughter. With the girl that he hooked, I don't know anything about what she's doing today.
We just kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, clearly she's doing some still terrible things, if that's all true. But I don't know what her life looks like in any capacity. So hopefully she's figured that out. But yeah, no, I absolutely forgive them. I wish them well. I hope that everything turns out the way that they want it to.
Yeah, I know that probably had to be hard to get to that point because I think sometimes we think that forgiveness is like giving a pass to the actions, you know, and it's sometimes really hard to come to terms with that with somebody who wronged you, you know, so much that like, yeah.
Well, the thing about forgiveness is I don't think that you have to make it like I didn't try to forgive them. At one point, I just forgave them.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah. And I think the act of trying to forgive them almost makes it harder, right? Of like feeling like you have to do this thing.
Yeah.
And this big thing. Like I have a girlfriend who's going through a divorce right now, and she's very big on forgiveness because she's relatively religious, and that's what that preaches. And I keep telling her, you don't have to forgive him right now. Like that can come later. You eventually get there.
Yeah.
But you don't have to put that pressure on yourself right now. You don't have to like force yourself into this forgiveness that you don't feel. You are totally within your right to feel anger and hate and whatever the case is in this moment, because that's what you feel right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One day just comes.
Yeah. And there usually is a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, most of the time people get there even, you know, I mean, I guess not always, but you hope people find the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I know that I've had dark moments where I didn't feel like I was gonna, you know, get there, but, you know, did eventually.
Well, and those are the moments probably where like therapy really is important, right? Of like, I don't feel like I can get into a good headspace with this, or I don't feel like I forgive somebody who it's been a long time and I'm just still so angry. Those are the times that like you're gonna need additional help to get through it.
Yeah, because the spiral is terrifying. Like it can spiral so out of control so fast, you know, and if you can't pull yourself out of it, that's when bad things happen. So,
right. Exactly.
Yeah, I had a moment, it was a couple years ago, but I just like, it was the first time I think that I ever understood, like, I didn't necessarily have suicidal thoughts or anything like that, but it was the first time I kind of understood how people got to that point. Like I went into such a dark space for about 3 days in a row, which probably was on the short end compared to most people. But, you know, but I was like, I cannot pull myself out of this. Like I could not pull myself out of the spiral. It was just like every horrible thought I ever thought about myself and my situation and everything was just like drowning me and I could not shut it off. It was horrible. And, you know, there was never any other time in my life that I had felt like that. And it was like, again, looking back, terrifying. Like, in the moment, too. But, you know, luckily I was able to pull myself out of it eventually. But it was the first time I had like a firsthand understanding of people who really struggle with depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And
Yeah, it's painful.
Yeah, not fun. Okay, friend. Well, this has been fun. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your story.
Yeah.
I know, you know, sometimes it's hard to rehash this shit, even if you have come as far as you've come with the whole thing. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. And hopefully somebody listening, you know, if they are going through a similar thing, you know, can find some good little nuggets in this. Do you have any advice for anybody that may or may not be going through something like this?
I think the only advice I have is just that there's nothing that can make the pain go away except time, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have to just give it the time. And everybody used to tell me like time heals all or whatever the case is. And so you just have to give it the time. One day it just felt different. And again, there were a lot of things I did to be distracted in the meantime. And that's the other thing, stay busy, right? I'm not saying go out and like get drunk and do drugs like I was doing because that's not the right way to do things. But stay busy, right? Mm-hmm. Find what you enjoy doing, or something that keeps you from sitting at home being depressed and being sad, and that's how you fill your time until the time has passed when you don't feel this way anymore. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, my dear. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.